Welcome to the deep dive. If you are planning, launching, or maybe you're already running a business, an LLC or a corporation, you know that the paperwork can feel, well, endless. But sort of buried in there, in those initial documents, is this one legal requirement.
Yeah.
It's like the absolute backbone of your compliance, the registered agent.
And, if you're operating in Louisiana, this role isn't just some bureaucratic red tape. It's actually a critical legal defense mechanism. Getting it wrong, it exposes your whole business and, frankly, your personal life, too, to some really severe, almost automatic legal risks.
That's exactly why we're here today. Our mission is to take this stack of sources we have, guides on document uploads, specifics on Louisiana law, legal disclaimers, and just pull out the essential stuff.
Yeah, break it down.
We're going to break down the mandate, clarify the honestly staggering risks if you try to represent yourself, and explain why professional service is probably worth every penny here.
Absolutely.
Let's dive deep into the Louisiana legal lifeline.
Okay, so let's start with the absolute baseline, the non-negotiable requirement. If you're setting up any kind of formal business entity in Louisiana, LLC, corporation, or whatever, you must formally designate a registered agent.
Right. And I think a lot of people might just glance over that thinking, okay, it's just a mailing address I need to provide. But what's the actual legal weight here? What does Louisiana call this role specifically?
Well, the state sometimes calls it a domiciliary agent.
Domiciliary agent.
Yeah, and that term, it really drives home the legal intent, They are the official domicile, the sort of legal home base for receiving legal papers. And this agent, it has to be either a person who actually lives in Louisiana or a business that's authorized to operate there.
So physical presence is key. You absolutely have to be in Louisiana.
Right.
You can't just use a P.O. box or some virtual address service based somewhere else.
No, absolutely not. And that's a really critical distinction our sources hammer home. By law, the registered agent must maintain a physical street address in Louisiana. No P.O. boxes allowed. And, crucially, they have to be available at that specific address during all standard business hours.
All business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Pretty much, yeah, 5 days a week. And this availability, it ties directly into the whole legal concept of due process. The state needs to be sure that if someone needs to sue your company, they know exactly where and when to deliver those papers, and that someone reliable will actually be there to receive them.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. The state's basically protecting the rights of anyone who might need to interact with your business legally.
Yeah, exactly.
So speaking of documents, what are the main types of critical papers that this registered agent is responsible for handling?
There are really two main categories. The first, and you could argue the most urgent, is what's called service of process.
Service of process, okay.
Right. This is the formal legal notification that some kind of legal action has started against your business. We're talking about summonses, subpoenas, maybe court orders, or, the big one, the formal notification that you're being sued. The clock, the legal deadline, starts ticking the second those papers are served.
Okay, that's critical. And the second category?
That's the more routine but still important official state mail, compliance documents, essentially.
Ah, like tax stuff.
Yeah, things like letters from the Louisiana Secretary of State about tax notices, maybe franchise taxes, and really importantly, the annual report forms. If you miss these, you risk serious penalties, like administrative dissolution or losing your company's good standing, which honestly can be almost as bad as missing a lawsuit.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Because if the main job is just receiving documents at a physical place, I can totally see how new business owners fall into that trap, thinking, oh, I'll just use my home address. It's free, easy.
Right, common mistake.
But our sources frame this as a major error, like a critical aha moment waiting to happen. Why is listing your personal or home address such a dangerous move?
Well, it immediately creates three huge interconnected risks. And they basically undermine the whole point of setting up the LLC or corporation in the first place, that liability protection.
Okay, lay out the first one, the privacy issue. How does using your home address just instantly blow up your privacy?
The second you list that address with the Secretary of State, boom, it's a permanent public record.
Public record, meaning anyone can find it.
Anyone. It's searchable online, Process servers, sure, but also vendors, competitors, maybe disgruntled former employees, marketing companies, anyone who wants to look you up. You've instantly given up that work-life separation. Your home is now a public point of contact for your business.
Wow. That's a serious trade-off just to save maybe $100 a year on a service.
It really is. And the second risk connects right into that loss of privacy, the potential for embarrassment and disruption.
How so?
Okay, imagine this scenario. You're maybe hosting a family gathering, a holiday party at home, or maybe you run a small consultancy from home and you've got a really important client meeting happening right there.
Right.
And then suddenly, a process server shows up at your door. They're legally required to complete that service, to hand you those papers. They have to do it right then and there, regardless of who's around.
Oh, man. So right in front of family, or worse, a client, that legal process just completely overrides any personal convenience or confidentiality.
Exactly. That kind of public encounter, it could be absolutely catastrophic for your reputation, especially if you're in a client-facing business. It's not like getting a discreet letter in the mail. It's a very public, very high-stakes declaration that you are being sued.
Okay, that's bad. But the third risk you mentioned, the risk of missing documents, that sounds like it carries the biggest potential punch, financially and legally. What happens if you're just jobbed away?
Yeah.
Like on a business trip for a week or maybe a family vacation, and a summons shows up at your house?
This is where it gets potentially catastrophic. And it's really why professional service is so vital. If a summons arrives at your listed address and maybe someone else signs for it, a family member, a roommate, or even if the process server just makes repeated documented attempts to deliver it,
Yeah.
the court considers your company legally served. If you're traveling, you don't get that document immediately. You miss the deadline to respond to the court, which is often very short.
And if you miss that deadline, what's the consequence?
The result is almost always a default judgment against your business.
Default judgment.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in practice?
It means you lose automatically. It's not just losing the case on its merits, it's surrendering your legal right to even present your side of the argument, ever. That claim against you instantly becomes a concrete, legally enforceable debt.
Wow.
And the plaintiff, the person who sued you, can then move really quickly to seize your business assets, freeze your business bank accounts, put liens on property, all without ever having to go through a trial because you defaulted.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. Because I know the sources point out, you can technically be your own registered agent in Louisiana. It's allowed.
It is allowed, yes.
But based on everything you just said, needing to be physically present 9 to 5, the public address, the risk of default judgment, it sounds completely impractical and frankly dangerous.
Right. That's the conclusion. To legally be your own agent, you have to personally guarantee you are physically available at that public address every single business day during all business hours. For any busy entrepreneur, that requirement alone makes using a professional service much more of a compliance necessity than some kind of optional luxury.
Okay, so that really shifts the focus squarely onto professional service providers. Now, our sources look specifically at local specialized firms. They use Lafayette Process Servers, which operates as Baton Rouge Process Servers as kind of case study. Now, you see those cheap national services advertised everywhere, right? Maybe $50 a year. How does a local specialized firm, which might cost, say, 3 times that, actually justify that difference?
Yeah.
What risk are you taking with that cheap national option?
That's a great question. And the answer really comes down to expertise and specialization. A lot of those cheap national services, they're basically just high-volume mail forwarders.
Mail forwarders.
Yeah. They might receive the document somewhere eventually, but then they often rely on just, standard mail forwarding to get it to you, which is slow. Or they might not have the specific, localized legal support infrastructure you actually need in a pinch.
So the critical difference is speed and, local understanding.
Exactly. A local firm like the one mentioned, they're not just mail forwarders. They are a full-service legal support company. They are literally process servers themselves.
Oh, so they do this day in, day out.
Precisely. They understand the urgency of court deadlines because they're the ones delivering those papers every single day. They grasp the entire life cycle of a Louisiana lawsuit the second that document hits their desk. It's a completely different level of engagement.
Okay, can you walk us through their process advantage then? How does what they offer directly address those 3 big risks we talked about? Privacy, embarrassment, missing documents.
Right. So first, privacy. They provide instant confidentiality. Legal documents are served at their professional Baton Rouge office address. Your personal address, your home life, stays private and off the public record.
Okay, discretion is built in. That handles risk 1. What about speed, preventing that default judgment?
Speed is absolutely paramount. They leverage their expertise to guarantee immediate notification. Unlike services that might just stick it in the mail, they scan and email the legal documents to the client the same day they are received.
Same day. Wow.
Same day. That immediate, secure digital transfer is often the critical factor that saves a company from missing a really tight 15-day or 20-day court deadline. Plus, they typically provide 24/7 online access to a secure portal where you can always see your documents.
That real-time digital notification, that sounds incredibly valuable. Now, I did notice in the source material it talks about the workflow when someone needs to start the process, like an attorney needing to serve papers on one of their clients. They use a secure upload portal, enter the details. What's the key administrative step that happens right after they submit?
Yeah, it's a small detail, but it highlights the professional commitment. After the submitting party gets a confirmation email, the firm sends them a prepaid invoice for the service of process itself.
Prepaid, before they actually go out and serve the papers.
Exactly. The actual service, the physical act of delivering the paper, preparing the legal affidavit of service, doesn't actually proceed until that invoice is paid.
Why is that prepayment structure so important in this context?
It really ensures commitment and efficiency on both sides. Process serving involves real costs, time, mileage, effort, sometimes multiple attempts, filing proof with the court. Requiring prepayment ensures that once the client initiates the service, there's no administrative delay or payment issue on the back end that could cause the process server to hesitate or miss a critical deadline for completing the service itself. It keeps the wheels turning efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense. So, if we connect this back to the bigger picture, this isn't just about receiving lawsuits reactively. It sounds more like comprehensive compliance management, protecting the business all year round.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Good firms help clients stay on top of all their compliance deadlines. The sources specifically mention the annual report filing with the Louisiana Secretary of State. Missing that deadline can lead to fees, penalties, even losing your corporate status. The registered agent acts as that consistent, reliable point of contact for all that crucial state correspondence.
So they're basically setting up your business with a robust, like a legal first line of defense.
That's a good way to put it.
So if the worst does happen, if a lawsuit is served, the firm is already kind of plugged into the local legal ecosystem.
Precisely. They're integrated. They often have relationships and processes in place. They can instantly connect the client with other necessary legal support services, like maybe helping facilitate a court filing or retrieving documents from the local courthouse. The source mentions the 19th JDC, for example.
Right, the 19th JDC. For listeners who might not be familiar with Louisiana's court system, what is the significance of the 19th JDC?
So the 19th Judicial District Court, that's the main state trial court for East Baton Rouge Parish, where the state capital is. It handles a huge volume of business litigation in the area.
No.
The fact that a local registered agent firm is prepared to interact immediately with the 19th JDC, it just underscores their deep local focus and their immediate practical value if a legal crisis hits.
Yeah, that local connection seems key. And this level of professional trust, it seems, is why local attorneys actually rely on these types of firms. We have that quote in our sources, right?
Yeah, from Brian D., a business attorney in Baton Rouge.
He says he uses this particular service for all his clients' new LLCs because they are, quote, professional, incredibly fast with notifications, and I trust them to handle sensitive legal documents.
And that trust, built over apparently 2 decades of experience for the person behind the source material, Scott Frank. It speaks volumes. When your client's entire legal fate might hinge on a document arriving and being acted upon within just a few days, you need absolute certainty. You don't want the cheapest possible option. You want the most reliable.
Okay, so for a business owner listening right now, maybe someone who's currently using their home address and they're realizing, uh-oh, this default judgment risk is huge.
Yeah.
They want to upgrade. What's the actual process for switching their registered agent? Is it complicated?
No, thankfully, it's usually pretty straightforward. You just need to file a specific form, typically called a change of registered agent form, with the Louisiana Secretary of State's office.
Okay.
And good professional firms, they often provide you with the correct form and even guide you through filling it out and filing it. It's generally a simple administrative swap to update the state's records.
All right. So what does this all mean then? We've covered the absolute legal necessity of having a physical, available agent in Louisiana. We've hit the really high stakes involved loss of privacy, embarrassment, and that critical danger of an automatic default judgment. And we've seen the value of professional local handling, especially that same-day notification.
Yeah, and we definitely need to circle back and reiterate that essential legal disclaimer found throughout our sources. Remember, everything we've discussed here today, it's purely for educational purposes. It is absolutely not a substitute for qualified legal advice from a licensed attorney.
Crucial point.
If you have been served with legal papers, a summons, a subpoena, anything like that, you need to consult with an attorney immediately, right away. Discuss your specific situation, your rights, your strategy. The author of the source material, Scott Frank, brings over 20 years of specific experience to this field, which really emphasizes that this isn't DIY territory. It's specialized, high-stakes compliance work.
That expertise really is the key takeaway. Okay, so to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to chew on, this comes directly from thinking about that P.O. Box restriction and contrasting it with the 204/7 secure digital access that professional firms offer. Given that Louisiana law demands a business maintain a constant physically available street address primarily for legal due process, how does the critical role of the registered agent fundamentally change how you think about a business's physical presence, that mandatory tangible location versus its increasingly digital, maybe even global operations? It's a really fascinating legal paradox, isn't it?
Okay.
Especially in our virtual business age.